Hey, what's going on, everyone? Cardboard.Capitan here, and today I want to share this deck I call FoE Heist Control. Now, let me make sure I get this right for this little joke. FoE does not stand for Formido Apungnatura Exequens for you Etrian Odyssey players. FoE actually stands for Festival of Embers, and I feel this is the next iteration of Heist. A lot of Heist decks, they play Storm Chaser's talent alongside This Town Ain't Big Enough as a way of recurring their spells. Well, during your turn, Festival of Embers will give your cards flashback, or rather your instants and sorceries flashback, as well as costing 1 life. So you can drop this and start casting your chorus cards from your graveyard. And what's cool about this is your chorus cards will retain their intensities in the graveyard. So your intensities can go up to 10, 11 once you recast them. So another thing to note with this Festival of Embers, you also have the option of removing it. You can pay 1 colorless, 1 red to sacrifice Festival of Embers should you deplete your graveyard or it gets removed. Now, the downside is if a card or token would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, you exile it instead. So it's not a card you want to see early on. It's a card you want to see once you have some fuel in your graveyard. As far as other cards go, a lot of standard heist cards. You have your choruses, the ballad, the hymn, the shanty, your trinity, in other words. Weave the Nightmare, Graver Expectations, some more heist cards that are castable from Festival. Triumphant Getaway. That's another important card because it can turn your heisting into Drain. Now, Steaming Sauna, Roaring Furnace. Since you can cast him to the ages plenty of times, that Steaming Sauna is going to help you out from not having a maximum hand size. But it's removal. It's also a way of recurring draw each turn. So, decent card. Lootmonger. More heist. Creature on the board. Now, Picklock Prankster, kind of experimenting on. The basic idea is, since your deck is a large amount of instants and sorceries, you have 20 as a matter of fact, you're likely to hit some that you can use. But it also puts instants and sorceries into the graveyard for Festival of Embers. So, I'm trying it out. I had 2 Festival of Embers, but then I got worried that I would mill it with Picklock Prankster. So, there's a little flex in there. Lands, bunch of urges, bunch of surveil dual lands. Sorry there. Now the sideboard. I chose not to go with any graveyard removal just because Grave Expectations can remove graveyards. Now there's an argument where something like Ghost Vacuum can recur each turn. Now I haven't seen too many graveyard decks just yet, so there's some flex there. I'm a bit worried that it has a bit too much creature removal, so that's something I can work on once next season starts up. It's in 3 or 4 days, so I'm just trying to slow down my gameplay right now. Not tilled out. Bear Triumph for Planeswalkers 2, because I do see a Liliana on occasion. Withering Torment. I don't think there's too many enchantments in play that warrant Torment. I mean, there's Virtue of Persistence. That's the only thing I can think of on the top of my head. Um, and maybe overlords, but um, you got other options for this cover up. In case you need more board wipes, disdainful stroke for the mirror match and big creatures. You can run negate instead of stroke, but stroke does hit calamity, which is a problem in my opinion of this deck. Negate, it's more versatile, so one or the other, I guess. Stab, that's more creature removal. Hits elves, hits mice. Um, kind of does the same thing as Shanty early on, so only have two. Liliana, case heisting doesn't work out. Maybe you want to take out your getaways for more creature removal. That's an option. Duress. First off, you always gotta use the Hellraiser chains art for Duress. But it's against control. I prefer it over Phantasmal Extraction because it can hit cards that have greater than 4 mana cost. And it's one black regardless of whether you start first or second, so it's there. Alright. That's enough talking about this. Let's go to some gameplay. So, the focus of this first match is to give you an idea of the thought process of what to heist, how to play out the deck. Let's get started. As far as this hand goes, definitely a keeper. Good mix of creature control, him to ages, that can start off the chorus building, and weave the nightmare in case I need to counter a non-creature spell. Green-white, not too sure what the opponent's playing so far. I see a loot go to the graveyard, so I'm not fighting too often. Elves comes down, and so I drop the hymn. And here I'm just manually tapping so I can bluff out Ribald Shanty, but I bolt the birds, put the elves back on the shelves, and then Fountain Port Charmer. So some sort of ramp. I'm expecting some sort of big creature in their hand right now. And here I go with the mountains, just so I can drop the Loot Monger and drop the him to the ages. So since I'm expecting some big creatures, I heist the Starfall Invocation. Okay, nothing too big of a threat just yet. Now I decide to unlock the Steaming Sauna, but wasn't expecting to get lost there, so that's my tempo for a turn. And then the Vaultborn Tyrant comes down. So it's kind of a big deal, kind of not a big deal. What I could do, I don't mind taking a hit from the Vaultborn Tyrant. But I'm just trying to get these loot mongers kind of big. And another tyrant comes down. So maybe holding up enough mana for Weave of Nightmare was the right choice, but since I went Sentinel of the Nameless City, I can choose 2 modes of Weave of the Nightmare now. And opponent doesn't attack. So I heist once more and see another Starfall Invocation. So I've got some good removal lined up. I'm gonna have to play on the defense right now. Right now, I'm trying to get the opponent to overcommit to the board. Now, Vaultborn Tyrant, they will leave tokens of themselves when they die. So, double swings with Tyrant. I'm gonna go with Shanty here, just in case I need that Weave to counter a non-creature spell. And since Lootmongers have first strike, they beat the Tyrants unharmed. And drops another Tyrant. So at least, should I feel the need to Starfall Invocation, having 1 Tyrant token isn't as bad as 3. So again, kind of on the back foot. I can't really swing into those Tyrant tokens, so I'm just playing the long game right now. More commitment to the board by the opponent will make these Starfall Invocations more, they'll get more value, I guess. I'm trying to think of the proper word, but opponents just flooding the board, getting more lands. Not a problem. Now, if I were to Starfall Invocation, I could bring back a Lootmonger, but they have a discard effect when they come into play. So I see 3 green shells. I'm just playing out my hand. Heist another card from the opponent. I get 3 treasure tokens from my 3 Lootmongers. And at this point, from the cards the opponent's been drawing from their Tyrants, Mill is a very serious win condition for this round. I didn't see too many artifacts or enchantments from the opponent, so scrap shooters not a choice I want to use. I went with fungus here just because I can trade a treasure for trade a creature for a treasure. I don't have the 10 lands necessary for the green shell just yet. And then opponents building up their board again. Okay, go with the green shell. There's the triumphant getaway. I'm a heist now. And I think with green shell and play, okay, Lead Sire. That's something you must answer with whatchamacallit, like a board wipe, which I do have. Right now, I'm just trying to trigger my green shell that I heisted as many times as I can while draining life from getaway. So hopefully I can hit the 10 lands I need. Him to the Ages is just fine too. Okay. Now what I could do too, I can use one of the funguses to block and then sacrifice it to put one of the lands in my hand into play. My Select Ballad's looking good too, especially since I have Festival in hand, so let's see what I do. Okay. Block everything. Okay, token goes to the graveyard. Okay, major trade happens. Let's see. Alright, Festival of Embers comes down. I can start replaying a bunch of cards in my graveyard, so I'm gonna start heisting the rest of these green shells. Oh, found a Day of Judgment. You know, and I could have just used Ribald Shanty by itself, but I feel a little greedy. I wanted to heist first. Okay, right now my creatures are big enough to block the Tyrant. I'd say This game is preset on my side. Not too worried about the Starfall invocation. That I am a bit worried about. But I do have 2 board wipes on my side. Plus my Mycelic Ballad, and Chimeal. Anyway, I have a lot of spells I can use right now and a whole lot of mana. So, just to be safe, Day of Judgment. And then Chimeal for the Discover. Get away off the top. Let's get some more heisting done. So at this point, the opponent still has a bunch of ramp cards in their deck, so I'm gonna leave them alone. This late in the game, they're dead cards, and that's something you want to do when you're heisting. You want to focus on cards that either stop your game plan or accelerate, or help the opponent's game plan. So like those ramp cards, they're only good, in the first couple of turns. So I was focusing more on first the board wipes, because I was expecting like a large creature deck, and board wipes are good for those. And then focusing on the difficult to answer creatures like the Sire, it has hexproof. And the Vaultborn Tyrant, it comes back to life as a token. So those are high priority heist targets. Okay, I hit the island I need, the blue mana. No. Okay, so far it's looking good for this hand. I went with Lootmonger. There's Heisting's a Tyrant. I went with Lootmonger over him this early on just because of the ramp, the opponent can drop large creatures, and right now I don't have too many answers for that. I don't need another Weave the Nightmare right now because I have one in hand. Really, I messed up there. Kinda glad he didn't block with a Fountain Forge Armor. That was just me clicking too fast. Okay, so there's a green shell. Green shell's gonna start ramping them up. From my side, I want to see like a Mycelic Ballad. I think there, I should have used Roaring Furnace on the green shell. Because even though its Anthem effect doesn't come into play just yet, whenever a creature with toughness greater than their power comes into play, it potentially gets them land. So like there with Lookout. And now they're just ramping up. So I think that was a mistake on my part there. Okay, so they have a get lost to answer the play there. So as you can see now, the mistake from earlier, it snowballs into a difficult to answer creature there. So now it's kind of a desperation steaming sauna. And then there is a tyrant. And now their board's going out of control. And they drop a Dawnbringer. I don't know what my chorus count is right now, but I need it to be pretty high. What I could do here too, if it gets desperate times, I can him, and then this town ain't big enough on the room. I don't think I'm there just yet. I went with a map token here. I mean, so this is the downside to Steaming Sauna. You can only draw a card at the end of the turn. So if considering that a lot of your spells are sorcery speed, you won't be able to use them here. So and even at this point, even if I do have a Mycelic Ballad, I don't think my chorus count is high enough to deal with everything, so. You can drop a Vaultborn Tyrant, but the life gain wouldn't be enough. I believe it's only 4 life gain. 4, 5, 6, 8. So yeah, I mean, it might be able to help. But instead I go with a Weave the Nightmare. Day of Judgment. That won't do anything. And making that Tyrant bigger. I mean, that's probably, yeah. Pack it up. Because even if I remove one green shell, then there's the other one, so. Yeah, let's go to the next game. So let's see, let's take a step back. I didn't sideboard the first round. With this match, I would bring in Liliana, Deadly Cover Up, and Disdainful. I don't remember what I did in this particular instance. Grave Expectations, that's the card I find I'm sideboarding out most. Just because it's a 1-for-1 trade. It's not even a card that can impact the opponent's hand immediately. So, I mean, it's really good versus when you need graveyard removal, but outside of that, it's not that good. So I bring in Stab too, just because I've seen elves. Stab is something you can use to remove creatures without committing your shanty. Now I'm gonna go shanty here, just because I do have a Hymn to Ages. Okay. Look out. Then I don't expect Stab to be able to do much this late in the game. I guess mid game. It's mainly there to answer elves and when I fight mice, but this is a mice deck. Let's see what I can heist this time. I see an exercise. That's only something I'd worry about if I have Festival of Embers. Now, the life gain from Getaway is nice, but heisting twice I think is better, so okay. And there's a Ballad, so I'm pretty set for now. I'm gonna have Ballad, I'm gonna have Starfall Invocation, I'm also gonna have Liliana. And Elves. Alright. Right now I'm just trying to get my opponent to commit to the board more. Probably should have used Disdainful Stroke there. Let's see, I think I'm gonna be doing some with this town ain't big enough with it anyway. Okay. Okay, opponent gets the token, and I can answer that token with this town ain't big enough. 6 damage, not a big deal at this point. Okay, Sentinel. Okay, I don't want the opponent to explore, so I'm doing it this way. And then opponent gets lost on my getaway. Not a big deal. With 2 creatures and no manlands, I can drop Liliana, force a sacrifice of 2 creatures, and go from there. I also have mana up for Disdainful Stroke. Should the opponent try to drop something big that I want to deal with. Okay. I want this zombie able to block the large charmer. And then I have a Liliana off the top should something weird come up. Okay, I think I'm sensing a little desperation there from sacrificing their token. Okay, a loot. And the thing I worry about loot is his activated ability. Because loot can start putting creatures on the board. So let's see what I can get. Day of Judgment, good find. Get Lost, also a great find. So what that does, that'll let me hold the board wipes for a later time. Yeah, so even more desperation from the opponent. I'm gonna keep making zombie tokens. And then turn that Fabled Passage into a heisted card. I could slam the green shell right now, but still 2 lands off from its ability. Plus, I want to hold mana up for Disdainful Stroke. You're a Dawnbringer? Not too worried about it right now. Opponent concedes anyway, so... Alright. So, that's the thought process there. Let's go to the next video. Okay, cool. With this next matchup, I'm gonna be on the play, but I'm gonna spoil who what I'm playing against. It's a Heist deck. So with Heist, a lot of it is not leaving yourself vulnerable to letting the opponent snowball. Now, I discard a Shanty just because no, I'm not expecting creatures, but usually whoever can get a getaway first, they win. Whoever can get like a loot monger and grave expectations chain going, and then they start chaining grave expectations, and then the loot monger is going to produce treasure tokens, and that keeps going on, and it's even worse if there's a getaway in play. So that's something you gotta look out for. I think the opponent isn't running an optimized version. Like, you see the Soured Springs, Hopeless Nightmare. There's some flex in what you can play. But on its own, loot Hopeless Nightmare is not a big deal. So I do see a Grave Expectations. I see this as an opportunity to drop the getaway. And then that's the getaway from the opponent. So now that I'm tapped out, the opponent might see this as an opportunity to drop a getaway of their own. But they do have a land that comes into play tapped. So, the card I have to watch out for now is Weave the Nightmare, so that's why I'm kind of hesitant to drop a getaway of my own. I also want to be able to respond to a getaway on their side. with a Triumphant Getaway on my side. Important thing to note is Triumphant Getaway has flash, so you don't necessarily need to play it on your turn. Okay. I'm not expecting any 2-mana counterspells from the opponent right now, so that's why I'm being bold in the Getaway play. I probably should have taken Grave Expectations just because I have multiple loot mongers in play, and once you have multiple, you can start turning that mana into treasure tokens. So, say you have 2 loot mongers in play, you pay 1 black mana for Expectations, and then you get 2 treasure tokens. So, a loot monger from the opponent. I believe this is one of mine. Discarding a virtue. And this is why I wanted to keep the shanties just in case I see the opponent drop a loot monger. Now, usually with these loot mongers, you want to respond to their come into play their enter the battlefield effect. Because their treasure token, it starts being created when the heisted spell gets cast. So, okay, shanty from the opponent. I think my play here, I was trying to get one of these loot mongers to stick, and then cast Shanty. Unfortunately, my opponent's able to answer both of these loot mongers. Long goodbye. There's the second getaway. Okay. So my opponent's a bit behind on mana too. And taps out just because, okay, I have too many getaways in hand, or in play rather. Okay, Disdainful Stroke I'm bringing in to answer opposing getaways. Festival of Embers, it's a card I worry about keeping in just because they can also use a similar strategy. But, I take one out. I've seen some heist decks, they'll use this card called Ominous Loot Box. And basically you can set a number to it, and if the opponent plays a spell with mana cost equal to that number, then you make a copy. So that's good if you want to copy, say, Weave the Nightmare for 3, Getaway for 4, stuff like that. But I believe it's a rare, so, wild cards, right? Not best hand versus this matchup, but I'll keep it because I do have a theater uh, I can use to surveil any extra lands, plus my mana base is preset right now. I want to be able to answer a loot monger, right? But the opponent doesn't have it. And there's my him. Okay, opponent's going off, looking for some land. Okay. Now, even though I can him, I want to keep mana up at all times for Weave the Nightmare whenever the opponent has 4 untapped lands. So let's see if opponent's able to hit their land drop first off. Waiting in suspense. I don't know, it's looking like the opponent doesn't have land, huh? Maybe the opponent had some to take care of real quick. Let me stop being mean. Yeah, like, I know stuff comes up in real life. Like, okay, so, I don't need to worry about getaway right now, so I just draw with him. Opponent discards. And what's interesting is they discarded Grave Expectations, which they could play, but they didn't. So I think they have a Weave the Nightmare in their hand right now. Still no lands from the opponent's side. Kinda unfortunate. I've had this happen before. But the opponent's playing it smart, because I really can't drop a Triumphant Getaway with 3 untapped mana up from the opponent. Okay, hey, opponent hits some land, so I'm happy. I don't need to play him to the ages just yet, because I've got a good amount of cards in hand. Okay, Grave Expectations, not a big deal. I get heisted, right? So I'm not seeing too much of a use for Mycelic Ballad right now. I want to take these Weave the Nightmares. Okay, Grave Expectations. So I could have taken him to the ages, but for one, I have him in my hand, and for two, I don't need too much card draw right now. Okay. So it's safe for me to play this because I have enough. And it's basically just a waiting game. I don't have enough to play Steaming Sauna like I want to. There is a getaway. I'm gonna drop Disdainful Stroke on it. And that's one from the opponent that I have to worry about. Lootmonger? Okay. And then this was what I was talking about. You want to respond to that enter the battlefield effect with removal. So, at this point, mana is not too big of a deal. Okay, more Grave Expectations. So the treasure tokens are less of a concern as the amount of cards the opponent gets. Nope. Okay. Okay, there's a Disdainful Stroke from the opponent's side, but I really want my cards right now. So even if the opponent gets a Triumphant Getaway in play, now would be a good time, yeah. I want more cards, because right now I feel like I need more options. Let me blow up that Lootmonger before it gets out of control. So I'm tapped out. Fortunately, opponent doesn't have enough to play another getaway, but does get him to the ages. The opponent's also tapped out. Well, besides two treasure tokens. Okay. Do it. Give me the hymn to the ages, see what I get. So, with two Weave the Nightmares in hand, definitely not wanting to use Festival of Embers just yet. But I've got a graveyard full of goodies. So when Festival does come down, Yeah, they're gonna be unleashed. No, triumphant getaway. I do see a Zoyoa's Justice, which is interesting, but take note, it only affects artifacts and creatures, so it's only good if I play a heisted lootmonger from the opponent. It doesn't hit getaway, so it's not too big of a deal now. Okay, triumphant getaway, no. No. Yeah, no. So, whole bunch of Weave the Nightmares used. It does open up the pathway for the triumphant getaway I'm about to play. I can also drop a Festival of Embers, so let's see what heist first. Okay, triumphant getaway from my side. Let's see. Nope, I go with Festival of Embers, huh? I think here I was just seeing how much mana everything would cost. So, Lootmonger. Virtue of Persistence, it's interesting because I can start bringing back Lootmongers, but I think I want him to deny the card draw from the opponent. Oh. Okay. I've got a handful of goodies. Graveyard full of goodies. Bunch of getaways. Opponent's gonna Zoyoa his Lootmonger. But most of my good cards are out of my deck right now. What you got, opponent? Triumphant getaway? Okay. I think at this point, this is where the opponent starts going off. See how this plays out. Yeah, this is what you gotta watch out for, like chaining grave expectations one after the other. Then Lootmonger, I guess I was off the grave expectations. Let's see. What is the opponent scheming right now? This town ain't big enough. So I counter with this town ain't big enough of my own. Let's see. So at least my opponent would have to play 6 spells to drain me to death. So it buys some time at least. Right now my focus is just on gaining some life. Does have Weave the Nightmare, unfortunately. So gonna try again, just to gain more life. Negate's interesting. So I think with this route, I'm burn down the loot monger, and then hold negate up for their triumphant getaway. So let's see how this plays out. That's another interesting point of discussion too, whether it's better to have negate or roaring, not negate or disdainful stroke in the sideboard. They can just drain me out there. So usually for like when I'm really sweaty, I side out all the loot mongers. I don't know how sweaty I was in this matchup. Stab is also an answer to the loot mongers. I put in some real quick that I missed. But I figured, okay, if I can have Festival of Embers, have some fun with that, let my opponent have some fun if they choose to heist it. Like, when Festival of Embers comes into play and you have a graveyard full of instants and sorceries, it's a fun time. This hand, definitely good options. Removal for the loot mongers, grave expectations. Should I want to heist? Some good surveil duels. Weave the Nightmare to counter their spells. Get away from my side if they get careless. And then start off with a heist. Alright. Let me get some blue mana going. There's another getaway. And it's great that I'm drawing these getaway cards early on, because that means that the opponent can't heist them. While with these expectations, I can try heisting the opponent's getaway. Ooh, Grenzo. I'm choosing negate just because I don't want to deal with getaway. Now, Grenzo used to be able to heist and then play cards of any mana cost for free. But since it got nerfed, it can only do 3 or less. So, as a result, many heist players removed Grenzo from their deck. So again, don't think it's an optimized version from the opponent, but respect for playing with what they have. Okay. And right now, it's just a big waiting game. Whoever drops Triumphant Getaway first, it can get countered. Going back to what I said earlier, whoever gets Triumphant Getaway to stick first usually wins. So that's why you see, okay, even though we got a handful of spells, not playing anything. Even to the point where I'm forced to discard. Or I thought I had to discard. Okay, him, not a big deal. And the opponent could probably still counter what I would play. Here, I'm going for it at the end of their turn because I do have a negate. And I go for it. So that's 2 Weave the Nightmares down from the opponent, plus they're tapped out. So I draw my Disdainful Stroke, which is excellent, because I can just drop Getaway main phase, and then leave mana up for Disdainful Stroke. Okay. I'm gonna attempt the Disdainful Stroke. Goes through. And here at this point, you're just playing the odds. The opponent used 2 Weave the Nightmares. I did see a negate. So opponent likely has 1 or 2 of those in deck. Okay, long goodbye. There's another negate. Stab here goes because even though Shanty and they can both get rid of 2 toughness creatures, Shanty builds up Chorus, and I'm stuck at base Chorus right now. So I think the opponent has exactly 1 Weave the Nightmare in their deck now. Okay, him. Okay, Triumphant Getaway attempt. Doesn't go through. Okay, Virtue of Persistence, it seems like a extremely desperate play. But I do have this town ain't big enough. You know, I could play it safe and play it next turn, but I don't think my opponent has a counterspell. And so bounce, getaway, play it again, heist some more, opponent taps out. Well, them's your matches. Thank you for watching. You can find me on X under the username Cardboard.Capitan. You can find in the link in the description below or on Moxfield under the username Cardboard.Capitan. This deck and other decks I play primarily Alchemy. I did have a brief stint with Explorer with this past qualifier weekend. I'll be having a video on that soon, but it's a lot of matches, so it's going to be a little bit. And that's it. I'll see you all next time.